I'll have you know. I've had letters published in the Irish Times. That used to be something that was considered quite an adult thing to do. My father spent his whole life trying to get letters published in the Irish Times. I don't think he ever even succeeded, but I've had 2 or 3. I've also had some in other lesser newspapers. I had one in one of them about the coin ticket machines on the light rail system in Dublin. It's probably illegal to tell you what I said in the letter because the newspaper probably owns the content now, so I can't tell you what I said. Suffice to say, it was rather witty, and it got published. I've had a few like that. Obviously, they're all complete meaningless bollocks. There are other people who write to these newspapers and you have something to say, and for some reason they get away with filling up paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs and still get published. The rest of us mere mortals try to come up with a witty one-liner because we know that the editors will use those when they have a little gap to fill in the... It's not because of the content. They have a little gap to fill somewhere, so they like those. We know that's the only reason we get published. Of course, nowadays we all just start podcasts and just do verbal diarrhea for 45 minutes. I'm sure you're well aware of that. You're a podcast listener yourself. I assume you listen to podcasts. Anyway. If you don't, then I have a surprise for you regarding what's going on at the moment. Maybe you don't know you're listening to a podcast. Maybe you think this is just some fella in the room next door, in the next apartment. You've got very thin walls and there's some man in there who goes on about cats and burying heads in the desert and something about ostrich eggshells and all this stuff about getting a letter published in the Irish Times, which you admit is quite impressive. But you also think, oh, I thought it was quite impressive, but now he's just revealed that once he gets published at the short, witty one-liners, and those are the ones the editor uses to fill in the gaps. He's basically just plugging holes in a sinking ship. As if he found one of his letters in a boat, he'd use it to plug a little hole. And how does that? Can you do that? Can you plug a hole in a boat with newspaper? Papier mâché would work, but you'd have to let the papier mâché dry first before you use it, surely.